Welcome to part 2 of the LS swap. Alright, now that the engine's out, we'll have to clean up this engine bay, and then I will be test fitting the LS and we'll see how everything all fits together. Alright, so now I'm putting the engine mounts on. This is the engine mount for the left side of the engine, and you could tell it'll be hard to pick up on camera, but at the bottom here it does say left. Alright, so now with the engine mount assembled, we can attach it to the engine itself.
Alrighty.
Alright, so now with the engine bay here, we marked the two areas that I want to clearance a little bit better. There's issues with the coil packs and valve covers and around that height, running into the side of the engine bay in these corners. So a little bit of demolition will do us some good here. And I'm not really ready to paint the engine bay, but I really want to see it with some color on it. Front subframe removed. Now we could do our power steering rack relocation kit. So now that the engine bay is ready to be painted, I'm just trying to make sure that I don't get overspray on everything I don't want the paint to get on. Alright, so I did get this heat reflective gold tape, and I'll be putting this on the firewall on the engine bay, just mainly to make it look nicer, but it is supposed to reflect a lot of like the radiance of the heat. Especially coming off the headers and whatnot that'll be on the side. Not too sure how well it works, but there's a lot of people that use it, so must be something to it. But I think just style-wise, it'll look, really good in here. Alright, one of the problems I'm having with this tape is this engine bay is really not smooth, like, at all. And plus, there's a lot of these just like level changes, like this thing. I'm gonna have to go around these and all these angles and curves. So even though I really want this to look good and be wrinkle-free, you really can't do that with that kind of geometry going on. Finally finished my subframe rack relocation kit install, so I can go ahead and get this subframe replaced on the car, and that means we can get the engine back in this engine bay. I also finished up the painting of the engine bay, and I placed on this gold heat reflective tape. So we should be good to go with resuming with the swap. Alright, so this adapter plate, now that we have these bolts replaced on the top of this rear seal, this is perfectly flush. There we go. So one of the issues I was having getting this transmission placed inside the engine is there's this little nub on the inside of the transmission that seemed to be interfering with the flywheel. So right here I'm just taking my band file and I'm just grinding that to be a little bit more smooth so then it does not interfere with the flywheel and everything can rotate as it should. Alright, right around now is when I found out that the ICT billet accessory brackets that I had already purchased were not going to work for my swap. The high mount alternator bracket actually comes in contact with where the strut mount is for the passenger side. So instead I did a little bit extra measuring and I found out that I can use this different low mount alternator bracket with a like mid mount power steering bracket, and that solves all my problems. Alright, we're using brake-in oil. It's conventional. Don't use full synthetic for brake-in. Alright, now we gotta connect the engine harness to the ECU. Well, that's no good. We have ourselves a crank no start situation here. Let's go take a look at the data log and see what happened. Alright, after looking at my recent purchase history to figure out what I put in this engine, I accidentally put a single phase cam timing wheel in the engine, but really I needed to put this 4-phase timing wheel in the engine. So that single phase timing wheel, that's supposed to work with Gen 3 motors with the 24 tooth reluctor wheel. This has the 58 tooth reluctor wheel, which is supposed to go with this 4-phase, so we can tune around it. However, the better option is to just replace it with the proper wheel, so then everything will work without having to do anything awkward, out of the ordinary, just to get this to work. This is cheap enough and easy enough just to change out. Alright, and it's a good thing we didn't connect our radiator or do anything with our water pump, because now our water pump has to come off. Alright, so I got the cover off, so now what we have to do, I made sure that I rotated this, I put the bolt back in, and I rotated the crank until this cam position was at the very bottom. Alright, and then when we put on the new cam wheel, I can make sure that the timing is exactly as it should be, everything's in line and perfect. At this point, we took everything off that we needed to, and we got everything replaced. So we should be good. Everything's hooked up. We've got the cam sensor hooked up. Everything should be good to get this thing running. So let's try that, give it a crank, and see what happens. Alright, unfortunately that still didn't work. However, those sensors were perfect. I didn't have any RPM issues. I think I'm having voltage issues because this battery's so low and my jump pack was actually dead, so it wasn't really working. So we're going to try to get this battery charged up so then we can start again tomorrow morning. Alright, at this point I got everything set up to crank the engine. One of the things I found out after doing a little debugging, I got this cable in today to connect my ECU to my laptop. So I was able to, there's this test section where I wasn't sure if I was getting spark, and I wasn't sure if I was getting the injectors to fire. I did know my fuel rail was there, so between all three of those, I did check my spark plugs were firing. That was good. However, my injectors, they weren't getting any voltage. I was using my multimeter to test as well when I sent the signal to each of the sections. So what I found was I had my own fuel system set up. So between that fuel system, I wasn't using this green wire from my Holley Terminator wiring harness, but that green wire actually acts as a signal wire for the injectors as well as the fuel pump, which is what it's intended to be hooked up to. However, you don't need to use it for the fuel pump, but you do need to use it for the injectors. So with all that said, everything should be taken care of at this point, and let's get a good working running engine. Let's see what this sounds like. I gotta figure out a better way to turn off the engine, because somewhere is backfeeding power, and that's not good. Man. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more.